Hey, welcome back to JW Informed Consent. I hope you all are having a great weekend. And today I wanted to start this series where I begin talking about my journey, experiences, thoughts, and feelings as I went through the COVID pandemic as an elder in the Jehovah's Witness religion. And this will likely be a multi-part video series. There's so much to it. And when I think of pandemic time, I just think of this one big block of time, pandemic, COVID pandemic. But then throughout that, my mind sections off things by events that happened, where I was, what was happening, what was I doing. And as I started to wake up, these are videos that I was looking for. But there was a lot more censorship. You know, YouTube and other platforms have eased up on the censorship. You never know when they're going to press on that gas again, and videos like this that say words, say vaccine or COVID or pandemic or anything contrary to the mainstream narrative. You never know when these videos will just disappear. So we shouldn't take it for granted, right? We want to learn what we can. But this is what I was looking for. So at that time, as I started to wake up, there wasn't a lot out there, especially it would be named more cryptic and they wouldn't say it so much in their videos, and it was hard to find. And as I shared in my first video, this is the COVID pandemic caused the crack, but that wasn't everything. That wasn't, it just was a major crack in the foundation of my faith in this religion, but it wasn't everything. It wasn't the entire thing. Then there's a lot more. Like any exjw knows, there's one strange thing that kind of got into our psyche, and then the floodgates open at some point with all sorts of other things. To me, the deception that I saw during the pandemic was breathtaking. It was breathtaking. Have you ever had something just take your breath away? Whether that's maybe you get scared by something, a real intense. That's how it was watching all of this unfold and watching the deception that I saw, not only in my religion, but even in government, in the regulatory agencies involved in all of this. I had an experience when I was in high school. Speaking of taking your breath away, this was late at night. We're walking home, a few friends, late at night. Nobody's out. It's pitch black other than the street lights. And we're in front of Glendale High School, and this white pickup comes down Glendale Avenue. He's flying, and he wraps his truck around a light pole right in front of the high school. And if you had to describe if you had to give this truck human attributes, you would say it looked like his truck hugged the light pole. It literally, his whole truck went like this. The windshield turned white, and you could see this body just flying. You could see something. Couldn't tell what it was, but you saw stuff in the cab of this truck moving around. And my body involuntarily reacted. This guttural sound came from me, just like this. Oh, I just started hollering. Even as I think about it now, it was the strangest thing. I've never done that again. But I started this holler, and then, we ran and we called 911 and everything. But that's, again, the deception that I saw during the pandemic was breathtaking. Now, I was going to call this, I'm calling this, still recording it and thinking about the title, but I'm going to call this Jehovah's Witness COVID Pandemic Stories. I was going to call it Tales, Pandemic Tales, but then I'll tell you what popped into my head is some old music from Too Short. And so I thought, no, I'm not going to name it that. I'm not going to even tell you the song. And hear me out. It's been decades since I listened to him, but once you put that stuff in your mind, it surfaces every now and then. And besides, the word tails sounds like it's made up, and I'm trying to speak the truth here. I might exaggerate at times, but I try to actually what would you call that? Like under exaggerate. So I use the word stories. I get that. I guess stories can be misconstrued as well. But Jehovah's Witness COVID pandemic stories. I hope YouTube doesn't mess with this because of how I've titled it. And by the way, I wanted to mention there's an exjw elder on Rumble that goes by 9 Iron. It's 9 Iron without the E. So NINIRON on Rumble. Let's see, I have it here. Let's see if we can you see that? I don't know what I'm doing here, but okay, maybe something like that. It's on Rumble. Okay, this guy, he brings the receipts. He brings all the receipts for what happened during COVID, and he meticulously details all of this out. And shout out to my friend who, I don't know if I should say his name. I want to say your name, but I'm not going to do it until you give me permission. But because I don't remember seeing this guy during the pandemic, and he was more real time. This was like, during the pandemic or closer to it. See, me, I'm more like the kid who gets excited, right? Like your aunt, uncle, or grandma, grandpa show up at the door. I'm like that kid who looks out the door. They're here. And then I run away without letting them in, right? That's me with the receipts. I have the receipts for things, but when I'm talking like this on YouTube, I'm talking in the sense as if we're hanging out. If we're hanging out in my backyard, or if we're camping and hanging out, I'm not necessarily going to have a tablet or a laptop. Hey, show. Okay, here's my proof. Now, when I need to, I can do that. Or if I have to deep dive, I know someone in the comments, someone called me out for. They were just explaining the Australian Royal Commission and how he didn't lie. Jeffrey Jackson didn't lie, and so I didn't want to get into all that minutia. But I wasn't trying to. I didn't twist what he said. I just said, "Hey, here's what he said," or paraphrase without changing things too much, right? Once again, if what Jeffrey Jackson, and I don't want to even get off on this tangent, but now that I'm going, if what Jeffrey Jackson said during his testimony on the Australian Royal Commission is okay, just start using those words. For those of you who are still going to meetings, if you're PMO or if you're all the way in, start using Jeffrey Jackson. Take his words, go to the official transcript on the ARC site, get his words, and put them in a form where you can comment to that effect in the Watchtower comments, or when you have a part on the meeting. And just say it, and just see what kind of feedback you get. See how many times you can say that. He said it. He's the governing body, right? But anyway, excuse me. I didn't want to get off into that. But yes, 9 Iron, NINIRON on Rumble. He brings the receipts, man. Check him out. Also, Mark Martin on jwreasoning.com. He has a nice brother. He has a video from 2020, and I think it's what happens at a Kingdom Hall. So it's not named where you would think it was necessarily COVID related, other than the date time stamp on the video. But it's funny. It's very informative. Check that video out on Mark Martin's website at jwreasoning.com. It's the What Happens at a Kingdom Hall. I got a good laugh. I rewatched it recently and thought, yeah. He even shows video of the Riverside, that congregation in Riverside where they were the Kingdom Hall, just they opened it up and turned it into a clinic for COVID, for the medical procedure. That was That's some wild stuff there. So in mid to get into this, in mid to late 2019, alternative news channels that I would frequent and watch or listen to podcasts, they started talking about COVID. They started talking about this thing that was coming out of China. And one person in particular, one news site in particular was really just kind of like huffing and puffing about it. He was talking a lot about, hey, we need to, we need to close China down. There's something there, and things are kind of da. Okay, I listened. I didn't pay much attention. I figured it was local to there. I mean, that's probably a bad attitude. That's like a typical American attitude, right? But I thought, okay, it's temporary. It will go away. And then I don't know, mid to late, maybe later in 2019, the mainstream news started talking about this. And then the alternative news, in particular this one source, changed direction and started to smell something fishy about it, and then started to really kind of deep dive on, hey, what's really happening with this? And so by 2019, late 2019, the mainstream media is pushing the gas on this fear, on this fear P word. I'm not going to say it on YouTube, but it rhymes with corn, right? They were saying, hey, they were pushing this fear P word. And yeah, so now it enters your consciousness at least, and you start thinking, well, what is this? Now it's like a thing we know this whole time frame, right? But here's what happened around, I would say, early, right before everything shut down, like in March, like before these lockdown scenarios started to happen. Here's what happened in my little piece of the world. I had 3 friends get super sick, right? Again, we don't know. COVID is not in our consciousness at that point. And I had 3 friends get sick. I had, this would have been like January, February. So in January, I remember having an elders meeting, and there was an elder I served with. He had been out for weeks. He was older. When he would get sick, he'd get pretty sick. So he was sick. So it wasn't super uncommon, but he wasn't sickly. Okay, but he gets sick, this flu, cold thing. He is sick for weeks. He's just gone for weeks. He finally gets a little bit better. He shows up to an elders meeting, and he sits right next to me. And I mean, he seemed like he was just at the peak of his illness at that point. Because he sat next to me, and I'm not too germophobic about stuff, but he's coughing and huffing and puffing and just, he's a mess, and he's kind of slumped over in his chair. And I kind of scooted over a little bit. I'm like, hey, you okay, man? And so he was sick, okay? And then this, to me, I started looking at this later, like, oh, was that COVID? Okay. And he said, that was the sickest he had been in his life. An elder, now I served with that elder that I just mentioned. Another elder in the sister congregation I went to, we were in elder school together about late February 2020. And this brother, he took the bus to elder school. He's a sweetheart of a guy. And he has a car and a home and everything, but I think just the way things worked out for elder school, he jumps on the Tico, right? The chariot of the people. And when I found out, I'm like, no, I'll pick you up, I'll drop you off, right? So we rode together for a couple days. Well, I don't know, by Wednesday-ish, he's like, I'm not going, man. I'm sick, okay? So he was sick. He missed at least half of elder school. And we finished elder school, and in elder school, that's when we started to ramp up the talking about this virus, this whatever this was coming out of China. Okay. I said I had 3 friends, so that's 2 elders. I had another friend of ours. She got sick. We had a circuit assembly. I think it was February 8th. And I don't know what, I don't have the greatest memory, but sometimes I remember some stuff around numbers and dates, sometimes. Semi-reliable. But we had this one-day circuit assembly in Casa Grande, Arizona, around February 8th, 2020. And she came to our house afterward. The next day, bam, she was dead. I'm kidding. She wasn't dead. She was sick. She said, this is the sickest. She said, I've never been this sick. My wife, I gave my wife like supplements. We made all this stuff for her, and took it over to her. She says, oh gosh, I've never been this sick. Again, this is February. This is before this COVID thing entered our consciousness. And by the way, that there were a number of people talking about that circuit assembly, because we heard like 11 people sitting in a certain section of the assembly hall all got sick. They all got really sick. I didn't know all of them. I probably knew a few of them, and I knew her, but they all got really sick. So in retrospect, you start thinking, oh wow, maybe that was it. What was that? And again, that second elder I mentioned in the sister congregation, he's same thing. He missed elder school. I checked in on him 2 weeks later. Hey bro, how are you? I hope you're feeling better. I hope you're on the mend. He said, I'm still sick, man. I've never been this sick before. Okay. So virus or not, I know there's controversy over there. There's a virus. There's no virus. They poisoned us. What happened, the way they were sick around February 2020 definitely seemed more intense. And maybe in our minds, we blew it up a little bit in retrospect, because the pandemic was on the heels of that. But that's kind of how I saw that. So by early March, a few congregations in my area, they stopped going in service. And as an elder body, we were surprised by that. We were like, well, why are they stopping service? It's flu or whatever. We weren't hearing a lot. We were hearing, some people, oh yeah, so-and-so, they've lost their sense of smell. So-and-so, you lose your sense of smell, and you can't taste the food, right? And I'm wondering, what's going on here? So I call some elder friends. I called an elder friend who's a Kobe at another congregation, close to Midtown, close to downtown Phoenix. And I said, hey, are you guys canceling service? Because we're talking about it. Oh, that's because, I think I already mentioned, a few congregations had already, they said, oh, they're not going in service. So I call my buddy, hey, are you guys canceling service? He's all, no, we got circuit overseer this weekend, this week, right? A week of activity. We got circuit overseer. And I never forget what he said, because it was kind of funny. He said, it's not like people are walking in the streets and blood is coming out of their eyes. No, we're going in service. Okay. So we decided, we're going to keep going in service as well. That my conversation with him had no impact on what we decided as a body. That was just kind of a side conversation. And then also at the same time, the Spanish congregation, I forget the occasion, but they had invited us. It was kind of a rare thing, but we were all going to get together, Spanish and English. Spanish had invited us to a get together, which was really cool. And an elder I served with, he said, we're not going. Me and my family aren't going because of this virus, this sickness that's going out. And even then I was like, a lot, not just me, others were like, that seems a little intense, But, everybody's going to do what they want. And we went with it. Well, that get together ended up getting canceled. And we started this again. This is early March. So this is like the first 2 weeks of March. And we started, at some point, we did start this intense cleaning protocol. And I remember the maintenance overseer, I think it's the maintenance overseer, LDC, correct me in the comments, is kind of expanded things into local congregations. It was different than the old RBC. LDC kind of created protocols and all this very structured and thorough direction for taking care of your building and cleaning. Well, we started the maintenance overseer in our congregation, who was like the main overseer for the 3 congregations in my hall. he pulled out, they bought all this bleach, these Clorox wipes, and we started this intense cleaning protocol where after every meeting we would wipe down everything, especially non-fabric stuff. We might vacuum the fabric, but we would just wipe down everything. And I didn't even like messing with those Clorox bleach things because there's so many chemicals and stuff in there. But he brought, just to show you how intense, you pull that square of that Clorox, you pull it out of the container, rip it off, and he showed the entire congregation. He had a training session where you would take that 5-inch square little cleaning cloth thing, disposable, and he would say, okay, with the first inch, take that and wipe down all the metal chairs, wipe down, the wooden handles, and wipe down everything you could with that first piece. Flip it over and then wipe down the rest of the metal chair, and then fold that and then go to the next 1-inch section of that Clorox bleach towel and wipe down the next chair. I mean, it was a little much. It was like, oh gosh, okay, but we did it, right? So after meeting, there's tons of people, right? Because we're all pitching in. We're all saying, hey, we're gonna fight this thing together, this sickness, right? It kind of brought you together in a strange sense. And that didn't last long. That did not last long, because shortly after that, a Bethel letter came out, and the letter that came out of headquarters told us to shut her down, and we shut the Kingdom Hall down. And at first, it was kind of talked about like, we're going to shut it down for at least 2 weeks or something like that. And then remember, in mainstream news, it was, hey, stop the spread. And I was like, as an elder at the time, I was freaking out, like, 2 weeks? We're going to shut the meeting down for 2 weeks? Why? Okay. And that ended up being, what was it, 2 years? I think we were out of the Kingdom Hall for 2 years. And I was worried about 2 weeks. Even a month later, I'm like, okay, are we going back? 2 years. So once we shut the Kingdom Hall down, we, as elders, we missed at least one meeting, which that had never happened during all of my time as a witness. And this is significant to me because I had never experienced anything like this as a witness. To someone who it was never a witness, they probably have moved on to the next video by now. But so we miss a meeting. As elders behind the scenes, we're looking at these different video platforms. Like, I think we looked at Skype, and I don't know, we might have thought about Teams, but I think Teams was paid. Microsoft Teams was a paid product. So we ended up on Zoom. It seemed like a lot of people ended up using Zoom during that time. And so now our meetings went to Zoom. No Jehovah's Witness anywhere in the world is going to their Kingdom Hall for meetings at this time. This is mid-March, okay? I think we're like March 14th-ish, okay? And no one's going to the hall anymore. The ministry, Jehovah's Witnesses walking up and down the streets, knocking on doors, going into apartment buildings, knocking on doors, that stopped completely. That was gone. And so now we're doing meetings on Zoom. We're doing the memorial on Zoom, the memorial of Christ's death, which JW celebrate around Easter time, right? April, May-ish. Instead of knocking on doors, now we're writing letters to our neighbors. We're getting sheets of addresses and sometimes names, and then we're pulling up on the computer. Some of these pioneer sisters had these reverse directories that you could use for free, so we could get people's names and track it down and try to really personalize these letters that we were handwriting. Some were typing, but mostly I think the push, the encouragement was, hey, handwrite it, make it personal. We're trying to encourage, and you feel like you're you're really stepping in and doing something worthwhile, because as a witness, oh, this could be it. This could be the beginning of the Great Tribulation, which leads into Armageddon. And so you kind of get puffed up, not with pride, but you kind of think, oh, you kind of feel a little bit more brave about talking, right? So we're writing letters, we're putting a tract in the letter, or a magazine, or a little jw.org contact card. And sometimes some were doing phone witnessing. I wasn't a huge fan of that, but I did that with my boys at least a few times. I didn't have a problem talking. I just was like, I guess maybe I did, because I was never excited about it. I just wanted to write letters and just chat with the people that I was with on Zoom. So there was someone would be the Zoom administrator, and we all would meet as a congregation, right? All these windows up in Zoom. And then the person running Zoom would break us out into breakout rooms. And so you'd be in a breakout room with 4 to 6 people, and you'd write letters and talk and laugh and stuff. And I tried to stay on. I was in and out of work at that time. Believe it or not, I actually got a job during the pandemic, like in June of 2020. Thank God. I mean, thank God, because it was a tough market at that point, and I had stepped away from work for a while for other reasons. But so yeah, that's what was happening. And what else? So writing letters. We're talking, of course. What are we talking about? All that we're talking about is the pandemic. We're talking about COVID. We're talking about this virus. We're trying to armchair quarterback this thing and break down what happened, where this came from, what is it, what's real. Oh, so and so, yeah, they're sick and they think they have COVID, or so and so, they took the test and they're COVID, they're COVID positive. And then also, we're in service, and at times we were going to each other's houses, right? We would be masked up. Some would wear gloves, and we would drop stuff off for each other, as a nice gesture. So for instance, my wife at times would maybe bake something, or she'd make something up, and you're in service with 4 people or so, and she'd make this and get it ready, and she'd disappear. And then sometimes on Zoom, I could hear the doorbell ringing, and she would surprise them and drop off stuff. And, people would drop it off at the door, and then they'd drop it at the door, ring the doorbell, go all the way back to their car, maybe wave, maybe say hi, and that was it. And because that's how intensely we were treating it, and our governing body, the religious leaders of the JW religion were telling us to stay locked down, don't go anywhere, don't go out. And then at one point, the government provided headquarters with pallets of supplies, food, for sure. And as one commenter commented in one of my last videos, that there was a letter in there for Trump, right? And I had heard that as I was waking up later from Quinn from Deconstructing Jehovah's Witnesses. Good channel. He really breaks stuff down on that channel. I like it. He talked about that. I didn't know about that at that time, but anyway, those supplies eventually reached us, this pallet or half a pallet or whatever, and then the elders divvied it up and started dropping it, assigning people to pick it up and drop it off at home. So people were dropping stuff off at my house. And these brothers who handled that food, and those supplies, when those supplies came in, they wore masks, they wore gloves, they took those bleach wipes, those Clorox bleach wipes, and they wiped down the outside of everything they received. To me, it was a little over the top, but that's how careful, that's how intense that situation was. And then it seemed like whatever the mainstream news said, that's what the friends believed, like without any question, without any critical thinking. And that kind of bothered me. That kind of scared me even. Because at one point, and you no doubt remember this, at one point they were saying, the news started having experts on and saying, well, yeah, you can wear a mask, like an N90 or better, but if you want even better protection, double mask, wear 2 masks, okay? And I think at one point there was a university professor out there, he had done his studies or his research, and he said the optimal number was 4 masks. So put 4 masks on, I can't say the word, but put 4 masks on and that offers you the best protection. And I was just thinking that just seemed to, it just didn't all add up. It seemed like a lot of this we were kind of acting out of fear, and I don't like acting out of fear, and I don't think good decisions usually come out of fear. Now there's a time for that, but not just constant. It was constant, right? If there's a lion after you, or you see some, you're in the middle of the road and cars come, yeah, fear, get out of the road, right? But this was just this constant, hey, this fear, be afraid. So I mentioned the double masking because as soon as I saw in the news they started talking about double masking, sure enough, someone came to our home, dropped something off, they were double masked. And that scared me because it seemed like there was no way for them to think critically about what is happening and what is the double masking. You put on 2 N90 masks. What is it doing? You've got all this. If you listen to some doctors and I would say people in other professions where they absolutely have to make sure nothing gets in, they're not wearing N90 masks, right? Because they can explain to you how there's plenty of entry points, right? Plus the size of this particle, this COVID molecule, this COVID particle that was, from memory, what was it, 0.03 microns in size. You're talking minuscule, right? So a lot of the friends seem to just eat that up immediately, like, oh, double mask, okay. Without question. And so we're in service at one point. Again, we're talking about this. And then as time progressed and the government and the agencies are talking about this vaccine that they're working on, they're warp speeding, they're using AI and machine learning to help them quickly develop this molecule structured mRNA, right, modified RNA treatment to help this. We're talking about that, and sometimes we're debating, we're disagreeing a little bit, but it was fine, and it wasn't personal, right? We didn't leave mad, is what I meant. And so at one point, a friend, a minister, and I alluded to this in my first video, but I'll go into a little more detail now. A friend of mine, well, I guess they're all my friends, right? We call them friends, but this was really a friend. And he mentions, we're in service, right? There's maybe 6 people in this service, in this Zoom breakout room. And he says, yeah, I read that the hospitals were receiving money for successfully pushing certain treatments, right? Like what was it, intubation? They would get a certain amount of money, or if they pushed this other medical protocol, they were getting this certain amount of money. This was before the vaccine came out. Okay, now he says this in the Zoom breakout room, and an older sister, regular pioneer, elder's wife, she pipes up right away and says, that's not true. That's a conspiracy theory. And I didn't say anything. I had read the same thing in multiple places, right? I had received that same information in multiple places. I didn't say anything. I didn't jump in and like, you know, say, no, this is real. I just listened, okay? Because I already had my thoughts. I was probably more intensely into this information than most, so I just kept quiet. But she says, no, that's a conspiracy theory. Now, I think at this point, the governing body had already started, they began to come out with updates, and maybe the first update had come out where they had pushed this medical treatment, and that would have been update number 6, 2021. Okay, so she probably felt a little emboldened to say that. Well, her husband, an elder I served with, he calls me that same day, maybe an hour later. He calls me and starts asking about this brother, this ministerial servant. And he says, hey, do you think he's like, does he have like apostate leanings? Does he have apostate tendencies? And I'm really trying to put out that fire, because that was crazy to me that was suggested, because this brother had a different idea that wasn't mainstream news information, and it wasn't mainstream regulatory information, and it wasn't coming from the governing body. And now my fellow elders asking me if this brother is being an apostate. And I was like, no, he just, and I told him casually, I said, I read the same thing somewhere, without getting all intense about it and making it into a thing. I just tried to squelch that. So that was kind of like the beginning of the pandemic, like how in my mind, in my remembrance, my memory, how things began to happen. And I'll probably start, where are we at? We're already at 37 minutes. I talk and talk. And I'll probably stop here. And where I'm stopping at in time, in my mind, is right around the time where the governing body started pushing this medical procedure that was under experimental use authorization. And so when I pick up on the next video, part 2, 3, whatever it takes, I'll start there. And I'm not going to get all into reviewing all the videos again and going through what each governing body member said and the other videos and what was started to be written in our literature, like in the Watchtower magazines or letters. I don't think I'm going to get off into that too much, because there's plenty of other channels out there that cover this, and they cover it well, especially the channel, that 9 Iron channel on Rumble. He breaks it down very well. And there's other channels that break it down very well. And so I think I'll stop there. And until next time, have a good day. I hope this was helpful. I hope it doesn't bring back bad memories. Just something that we all had to deal with. Until next time, take care.